think this will take very long. And as I said, I'm not too, want the full screen. There it is. I'm not going to be too picky about these because they can be a real pain to write and a real pain to debug. So real quickly, I'll just look over here. The basics of the test, the thing that can drive you crazy is that when you have the form, right, the form has several fields. And the way you test it basically is you type in data for each of the fields. This is a simple one because it's just product type form. And it only has two fields, type and type description. What data you put here doesn't matter, but it's basically the field name, colon, type name. It's basically the key value pair kind of thing, right, or a dictionary. And then if the values are good, you can self-assert that the form is valid, right? So you're asserting true as opposed to asserting equal. We're going to do a couple of these. Where it gets hard is if your form has dependencies. For instance, that's why I did this form, is it doesn't have any dependencies. For instance, if you had a review, right? So the review requires a user and a product that you're reviewing. So in order to do that, you have to do a setup where you create a product and you create a review and you create a user, or create a user, and then you test it in the form. And I have found those can be nightmares to get to work. We'll try one, but just as a warning. So if you give it a good shot, just give it a try. If they work, great. If they don't, I'm not going to penalize. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go here, and we have, actually I've only got one, no, I've got two forms. I've got a product form and a review form, and I think they both have, let's look at the model for product. Models. So it has a URL. Does it have a user? I did not make a user field for that, right? No, I did. So the user, it has to have a user, right? So it does have one dependency. So we'll try to do a product here. That's one of my forms, and the other form was review, which has even more dependencies. So we'll see. So I'm going to go to tests, and it's going to be the same as the other tests, right? So we'll create a class.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I am recording. Lowercase c. And I'm going to say product form test. And then we will import test case. It's actually not importing, it's inheriting. All right. So I'm going to do a setup. So I'm going to do def setup, and I'll do self, and I'll create a user because that's what we really need, right? So I'm going to say user equals user. Actually, I think it's dot, right? Create object. Is it just create dot object? Anybody remember? It's been a while since I did that. Or is it just create object as one word? Anybody remember?
Objects.create.
It is S?
Yeah.
I think it's objects.create.
Oh, objects.create. That's why I wasn't. All right, and then what we want to do is give it the fields. Is that right? So we want to do username. Is that right? I'm trying to remember the fields for user.
I think you have to put username equals.
Right. Username equals, and we'll do user1. Do we, it's been a while since I did this.
No.
Username is not quoted.
It's not quoted, that's what okay. There's a difference between it and the form where everything's quoted. And then we'll do password. I think that's the only required fields for user. The other thing we need to do here, if we're going to see it elsewhere, we need to put a self in front of it. So let me close that down. No guarantees this will work either. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up a user because you need a user for product. The other thing with product is we have to provide a data thing for it that will give it, you know, all of the fields that are required, and that's going to be a bit of a pain. All right, so let's do def test, not text, test product form. Okay, and we'll do self. And one of the things I'm going to do, I think, is set up the data first and then put it into the form. I think it'll be easier to edit. And I'm going to look real quickly at the blog. I didn't do that, but the basic idea of the data is like type name. This one uses single quotes and double, but I'm not sure you don't have to do that. So we need all of the things for the form. So I'm going to do, first we'll do data. And basically what we're doing is we're creating a dictionary here. So there's the product name, right? And I think I have to, I'm looking back again. I looked at this before class. Yeah, just commas between them. It's just a dictionary. So product name quoted, colon, what do we, product one, comma. I'm doing it this way on the theory that it'll be easier to edit, right? Which it may or may not be. What was the next thing? Did we have a type also? Dependency?
Yeah, product type.
So I think in order to do that, we also need up here, we need a self.type equal product type. Is that what I named it? I'm counting on you guys to remember what I can't remember.
Text type.
Is it tech type here? Yeah, it is tech type here. So it's tech type on mine. Whatever your name is. The reason I scroll to the top is that it's imported, right? So we'll do dot objects, not is that okay, objects dot create. And I will do type name, except it's tech type name, right? equal type 1. You can name whatever you want in there. And description can be null, so I'm going to leave it null. Okay, so product name, and I'm going to one more time view my model. Product name, type, user, price, date, URL, and description. Description should be, these two could be left out, I think, because they're nullable. So let's do name, type, user, price, and date. So product or tech type, was that the name of the field?
Yeah.
Okay. It would help to have a memory that's longer than 2 seconds. I'm going to do self.type, comma, and then it was the user, and we'll just do self.user. And then I'm going to do, the next one was price, right? Product price. They don't actually have to be in order, but you don't have to do this. I'm just doing product price. So we'll give it a number, $200, whatever, and a date, right? Product entry date. These have to match, right? So you want to do, actually some of you, this might be the wiser. I think I just made this, I made it a date, right? That's actually can be a problem. We either need to cast it I'm going to do import date time. And I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to do date time dot date dot now. Does that work? I don't see a dot now.
Today is one of the options.
We could try that. This may be where it fails, though.
What did you import again?
Date time. I just import date time. There's a thing that will give me the current date and time. I'm just trying to think of what it is. We could try that. I suspect that's wrong. And then the URL and the other were optional, so let's leave those out for now. We might add them. All right, so that's the data. These have to match. This is where it gets really painful, right? This is because everything has to match exactly. Anything wrong, like if this isn't a valid date, if it doesn't like this decimal, you know, there's and it doesn't tell you what's wrong.
The date time time today, that's like open and close in parentheses.
I don't know that it does here. We can try that. Again, if it fails, it fails. We'll fix it, I guess. All right. So I want to do an assert, and I'm going to, again, look at this just because. So we're going to self-assert. First, we have to create the form. Okay. So I'm going to say form equals product form, which actually I don't know that we need to import our forms. From dot forms import product form. Okay. Otherwise, it won't know that we're there. So I've imported date time and I've imported product form. You can tell I'm kind of a disorganized thinker. So we've got product form, and then I'm going to in the parentheses. What?
Form.
So I did from dot forms import product form. Yeah, the dot just means from the current directory, right? And then forms, and then do. It's just a shortcut for the current directory, so you don't have to path it. Okay, so product form. And I think I can just do data equals data, which you might want to name them differently if you wanted. And I don't need to do the curly braces because we've already done those, right? Defined the data. And then I'm going to do self assert true form dot is underscore valid. Okay, and I'm going to check on that again. That looks good with parentheses. That's what I'm missing. All right, let's save that. So I have no idea if that test will run. But just to walk through what I did is that we created the objects that it's dependent upon, right? That's one of the things that's a pain. So we had to have a user and we had to have a type because the form requires that. One of the ways to know that there are dependencies is when you have the form and you have drop-down lists. The drop-down lists are usually looking at some other, object, and they're showing you the objects that get the drop-down list. So there would be a drop-down list of users, or it has actually a list box for that. And there's also a drop-down for types, right? What kind of type it is. And it doesn't actually look at the database here still. And then you basically, for the data, you have to provide, these have to match the model. And then you have to provide them each a value. These we got from up above in the setup. I'm really not sure about this. That should work and that should work. So if it fails, the date is the most likely place. That doesn't mean that that will be where it fails, but that's the most likely place. All right, so I have to go back and go get my virtual machine started. So I'm just going to do source. And again, you might have to go back one more folder than that, right? Because most of you didn't put your thing inside the env one, which I did. And then I'll run the tests. Python 3 manage py test, and I'm going to give it a verbosity of 2. I think the highest verbosity is 3. So dash B, no dash before the 2. So I have an error. Let's look up here. Where is my error? It is in the product form test, which is what one would expect. Does it say what the, yeah, so it doesn't like date time. So let's look at this.
Mine worked.
Yours worked? Did you have the parentheses, no parentheses?
I have parentheses.
What did you have? Just datetime dot?
Daytime dot today. Then
Why did yours work? Did anybody
Yeah.
else's work? No.
I'm getting through some missing comma errors and stuff like that.
I think this might work. I'm going to try it again. I changed it to datetime now. So it didn't crash with an error, but it says that false is not true. So it failed. All right. So it didn't. There's no error there now, but it failed. Why did it fail? See, this is the part. It doesn't tell you why it failed. What would about it would be?
Please scroll up. See here.
Mine's giving me an error that says product form object has no attribute is valid. But, oh, that's because I found it.
So what did you want to see?
I just want to see. I'm getting a product type. It's not.
Oh, so when you did a type, I did tech type. What did you name yours? Did you import it?
Yeah, I did the import. Oh, I did the import product type
Yeah.
in addition to product. Wait a second. Form by form. That's really important. Importing the date.
So I did tech type product review.
Product type is review. For the views.
Did I?
Got models.
I did models. I'm not sure I have views in here.
I got the models.
Okay. So I have a couple of ideas about why this fails. Do you guys have any ideas? Yours might be better than mine. I don't know how much I want to debug it because I said if you can get it so it just fails, it's not an error, but it fails. That's good enough for me. I am thinking that my user doesn't have permission. Does that make sense? How do I change that though? So I need to give, because the forms have that login. And even when you log in, you have to be a member of the member group. So this is one of the last things I will try, but I am going to real quickly just do a quick search to Django user set group membership, and I want to just see how you do that in code. I have done it. Why do I not get anything? I do not.
You have to put tab in front of product.
where,
The text, product form.
but it's just, I think it's just product form. Where do you see tech?
Well, I have tech product form, what
I don't think mine is called that though. I mean, you should use whatever yours is named. I'm pretty sure mine is just product form.
Mine passed.
Yours passed? What difference do you have?
I used a different date format.
What did you use?
Datetime dot date and then paren 2020 comma 5 comma 17.
Oh, that would work too.
No quote.
No quotes, just 20. So if
A
I,
year, 4-digit year, comma.
oh, comma, and then the
I
month.
just did 1-digit month and 2-digit.
Why is that red?
I just did 1-digit.
And today's the 28th. Let's see if that works. Maybe it was still the date that wasn't quite hitting the date. Because if we said it was a date and we did now, I think it returns date time, which may have been the problem.
I just pulled this out of what I was playing around with.
So maybe it's not the user at all, which would be fine. Is that saved? Still failed.
Do you need to import date time?
I did import date time.
Did you save it?
Self-assert.
Maybe save.
I did save it.
Can we look through your trace and stuff? Can you
Oh,
enlarge
sure.
that
Enlarge it. Oh, you mean like up
so we
here?
can see more of it?
Let's just go split terminal. So,
Line 63, self-assert, form is valid.
yeah, so it just says that form is not valid. So synchronize, so it tests all the migrations. Then it goes through and tests all the tests. It fails here, but it doesn't say why. It just says that false isn't true. Which is what drives me nuts, is that it doesn't ever. So you did nothing different than any of this?
Yeah, look at it.
And yours passed too, so whatever you did.
No, it's not passing.
No, it's not passing.
Yeah.
You just did an error.
That's your setup.
The trailer of false is not true.
Top line, sir. Line 47 and above.
Although those aren't in
I guess if those weren't set up right, you get a fail. But if they're set up different, it might cause.
does it matter if do the objects have to, between different classes, they should be discrete from each other. So that's a user, that's objects. I mean, we have the type and we have a product object up there
Well, you get a self dot product.
where up above,
I don't
that,
have that as a. I just have.
that wasn't in this one though.
Oh,
I mean, I'm thinking, so product form test only has the user. These should be totally independent. Of what was above. They should be independent. There shouldn't be any.
you know what?
Good.
That's weird. I don't have, so maybe mine's just bogus. 'Cause I don't have the paren after valid. I just have, paren, after assert true, I've got paren form dot index valid underscore valid.
And no parentheses there. But does it say that it passes? It doesn't say error.
I have no errors.
Mine said it all passed. Is it just the parentheses that's killing me?
Form test, it says okay.
Yeah, I think it might be just the parentheses.
I have parentheses in my past.
Yours did pass with parentheses?
I mean, I'm negative. But it's, you know,
Product form test passed with the, why? That's weird. Again, there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies.
Wasn't
there.
expecting some input in those parentheses.
It shouldn't be. It's usually just marks that it's a method. Even when there's no parameters passed, usually you need to mark it as a method. But maybe this isn't supposed to be a method here. Maybe it's supposed to be a just an assert, basically. But yours worked with the parentheses. What do you have different?
mine,
Oh, you're doing it in Python first. And you just need the data inside the form, so it should be fine. So yeah, it looks like it worked. And you did time and you did date. Yeah. Huh. No clue, but I'm gonna accept it.
But just for the record, you know, how did I find that? I was behind on.
On
but I
typing.
didn't-
I made a mistake.
Yeah, but your mistake seems to work because it just says that it passes, and there's no reason why it shouldn't pass. And I've had some of these forms where I have fought for hours and hours trying to get them to say they're valid, and I've looked at the data over and over again. I'm going to do one other test. It's going to be essentially the same form. So I'm going to do kind of the same thing. So I'm just copying this method, this function. But I'm going to make it invalid. So did I get it at the right level? Okay. So we're going to test form. I'm going to change the name to invalid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's just change something. I think this is, ooh, I want to get rid of the 200. So I'm just going to leave that empty. Or we could just take the field out because it's required, right? Actually, is it required? Maybe we should do a different one. Yeah, it's required. And it's supposed to be a decimal, so it should fail. Trouble is it might error, and that's not what I want. So I want to say form is not is valid, but is assert false. Form is valid. So we're looking to prove that it's false. So I'm going to save this, and we'll try running our tests again.
Let's give it a different name.
I did. I said test product form invalid.
Failed.
It failed because it is still valid.
Like a negative number in there.
Or let's just do a different field. Or it's required. What happens if we just take it out? It did run the test though, that's a good sign, and it didn't fail for an error. It still failed. Why is it not false? I want to falsify this form without doing an error.
Is there any validation on the password? Maybe took a numeric out of the password or something?
But I think that would be a different test. I wouldn't be testing this form, I'd be testing the user. This is the last one. If it doesn't work, I'll just explain what I'm doing and we'll let it be. Still failed. How do you make it not valid? I have an idea. Although it probably will just create an error. As opposed to a as opposed to making it true that it's false. Still good. Why is it not false? Assert false form is valid.
Return the parentheses.
What?
You can return the parentheses after value.
I can do which? My ears are plugged.
Yeah, you can return the parentheses after the value.
And then it works?
Yeah, no, she's right. I just added the parentheses in after.
Why did it work here and not the other one? All right, so let's try that again, and then we'll be done.
So you might still get an error because you've got user 2 in there.
User 2 should be okay.
So here's the question, are you testing the application or are you testing the tests?
At this point, I'm testing the tests, but you're supposed to be testing the application. What you really want is to see that this will produce. So when you're testing, the point of this was, typically you want to make sure that if they fill in the form correctly, will it be valid? We also want to test if they fill in the form incorrectly, will it be invalid, right? So that it won't just pass garbage into the database. And that's sort of what I was trying to do with the second one. So it is invalid because this is not a valid entry for this. And the other one, I mean, it could be now that because we put the parentheses on it, it might, but why no parentheses? Why parentheses here and not in the other one? It doesn't make sense to me. I will do a little more research on that, but I'm not going to complain because all my tests are passing. So the very last part of this assignment, and then is to try to basically test for a form. Just try one form, and if you have a form that doesn't have any drop-down lists, any dependencies, those will be the easiest. They're like the one in the blog. They're really simple there. If you do have dependencies, you have to create objects for them, right? So if they have a user as a foreign, anything that's a foreign key is a dependency. So if you have a foreign key for user, you'll have to do this. If you have a foreign key, for type, you'd have to do that. The other thing is avoid doing a form that has a many-to-many relation. That, I mean, you could do it. It's testable, but you have to create a list of the basically to represent the many-to-many. So it's even more complex in the setup. It just, it doesn't read the database, so you basically have to give it all the data, the fake data that you need to test it. All right. So that's the last of the assignments. I may, as I said, I may probably just post it, some additions. Like you can create users on the fly in the forms. You don't have to go to admin to do it. And you can, when you create them, you can automatically add them to the member group and things like that. So I'll show you a little bit of that maybe in the very last part of this. If we go to the original thing, it's the one part I don't have yet. This one is because this is this page, but all the others, yeah. And as I said, I'll set up some of those. I've done them before, and there's a couple of other things I might show you too. But I probably won't lecture on them. They're just going to be there if you want them. The other thing I'll show you for the project, if you go to GitHub, why do I keep getting this? They installed an update to Firefox. I hope this update doesn't kill it. Like it killed it on so many of these.
No, I test task before we do that.
Yeah. Okay, go there. All right, so when we look at the repositories, I just wanted to show you. So those two, this is the one we've been doing in class, and I'll post this last bit there. This I haven't finished, and I probably have to rebuild it. But this is the idea of this is it's a Django app, and it was sort of like Jiffy Lube or something, where you can take your car in, it keeps track of your car because they always know when you come in by your license plate and what services you've had. So there are, I don't know how much of that I had done, but let's look at the views. So I have the login and the input and the car service and the vehicles, and here's the, actually this shows you how to put in a new user and assign them to a group. That's the group they're being assigned to as customer. And then there's some other forms and stuff. So, I mean, there's that. Maybe I'll finish this one of these days. I'm just showing you there are some other examples you can play with besides the two that we did. The reading app was my attempt to do like a little Goodreads, where I was keeping track of all of my reading. I was doing it until my laptop crashed and I had to rebuild it. So just do the views. It has, one of the things that it does is it has a more complex context here for the beginning. It counts how many books have been entered, how many authors have been entered, how many notes I've made, how many I've finished reading, how many, the current count, I think, is how many I'm reading right now. I always read multiple books at once. And then this shows you how those get chosen, filtered, and they have the count. They all have the count function at the end of them. And there are things in there like when you list the genres, if you click on a genre, it'll list all the books in that genre. If you click on an author, it'll list all the books for that author. So there are lots of relations there. It's not, it looks like a lot, but it's not terrible. But again, it's just an example. And the reason, when you're doing your own, if you want to look at those other examples, you can. I don't know if I have any other Django ones in there. There's the older tech review. Oh, I did do a little project manager, which is sort of, this is kind of like your to-do list that I said you might want to do. I don't know how far I went with this either. it's a little bit simpler. It's actually kind of close to what we just did. It has a to-do list kind of thing. So there are examples that are up there that you can look at on my blog, my GitHub, and you can also. And I don't know if you've done this. I did it in the other class. I'm going to just real quickly show you. So I'm going to do file. Actually, that's not what I want to do. So this is saved. I'll come back to it in a moment and post it. But I'm going to go to the command palette, and I'm going to do git clone. Command git clone not found. Why?
Space clone?
Is it git space clone? So over here, there's the command palette, git clone. Never mind. I guess I won't show you.
What is command palette?
So over here, there's a command palette, and it has all sorts of add cursor things you can do. Add selection next to match. You know, there's all sorts of things. Git clone is. You go down here. There's debug, toggle points. It's really like all of the commands that are built in here, but in one place. Generally, if you do git clone and you go to the GitHub and just give it the URL, it will clone the whole everything in GitHub to a directory on your machine, and you can. It's there. It just runs.
So why does it say it's not found?
That's so. I'm not sure why it says it's
We
not
usually
there.
do it on the command line in PowerShell anyway. It's git space. And
Right. You can do git clone there, but there's a clone built into here too. I mean, this will go. I've done it in other things. It'll go to. In fact, I can show it to you. Just won't show it here. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm not going to get all the way out of this, but I am going to stop the video. So I have this. Except I want, well, it's all right. So I'm going to, and then actually to do this though, I need the, I want to stop that.